A mist hung over the wintergreen dog yard in the early morning light, caused by the humidity of rapidly melting snow. It obscured the upper reaches of white pines, sentinels that shaded the 70 Canadian Inuit sled dogs, and provided perches for ravens on the lookout for an easy meal of spilled kibble. The sled dogs knew the end of winter was upon them. Their days of running through Minnesota's north woods, pulling tourists on sleds, would soon be over for the year. The sun was rising earlier each day, and their coats were beginning to blow out the downy layer of underfur that had kept them warm all winter. But the energy in the air was different today, and they could sense it. All the guides were there, plus the gradually accumulating smells of new people. On the day after the spring equinox of 2010, guides were harnessing every dog and attaching corsages to the collars of 3 of them. The dogs of honor belonged to us. Daisy, Fennel, and Thistle were our pets in the summer, but earned their room and board just like us at Wintergreen Dog Sled Lodge near Ely, Minnesota all winter. Did the dogs know the cause for the occasion? It didn't matter really. They were just happy to go for one last run, with paws gripping lake ice and smells of the forest emerging after the stasis of winter. But the occasion was significant to us. This was our wedding day.
Welcome to Season 2 of the Paddle and Portage Podcast.
That was the voice of Amy Freeman. We'll be hearing more from Amy in just a little bit.
Season 2 begins right now on this very episode. How does that feel for you?
Natural. Feels natural.
Yeah, I was thinking that myself.
I can't think of anything else I'd be doing but this.
We've had a beautiful journey to get here. So many stories we heard in Season 1 from all over the wilderness and other destinations across North America. But I don't think we really need to say much more than thanks for helping us get here.
Thank you, everybody. There are 2 people who are pretty widely associated with the Boundary Waters through their book that documented their year-long experience in the wilderness. It's Dave and Amy Freeman.
Indeed.
Most people know them from that book and their advocacy around the Boundary Waters. But unless you live in Ely, where Dave and Amy do for several months out of the year, the open water months, you maybe wouldn't know what they're up to because you wouldn't, like we've been able to do, see them throughout that season. Have you wondered? Have you wondered, Joe Fredericks?
What they're up to?
Yeah.
Well, yes. I mean, we've saw Dave and Amy in 2024 last year a number of times. We saw Amy down in the Twin Cities at an event. We saw both of them in Duluth and after the Winter Camping Symposium. So you've been seeing them more than that even. Like we've been in contact with Dave and Amy more last year than maybe the previous 6, 7, 8 years combined. So they're around. Been seeing them.
Well, they are around, and it's a sort of a momentous occasion for them. They just published a new book, and they're continuing to move on in their lives as lovers of wilderness and place. And we thought it was time to sort of dive in with an update from them to you all.
And we're going to jump back to Amy reading a section of the new book after a quick word from our sponsors.
Hi, I'm Ingrid Lyons. I'm the executive director of Save the Boundary Waters, and I'm that person who sends you way too many emails. But also, if you don't get our emails, you should probably go sign up. Save the Boundary Waters is a proud sponsor of Paddle and Portage. We work to protect canoe country so that folks can paddle and portage in northeastern Minnesota for generations to come. Did you know that the Boundary Waters is America's most visited wilderness? Not only is it one of the country's most iconic and unique landscapes, but its 1.1 million acres of lakes and boreal forests offers something for everyone. People have long found inspiration and strength in the Boundary Waters, and now the wilderness needs you to speak loudly on its behalf. The future of this special place is at risk, threatened by America's most toxic industry, copper mining. Thanks for reading all the emails from us. I know we send a lot, but clearly there's a lot at stake for canoe country. You can make a difference. You already have. Join us in the effort to protect the Boundary Waters for generations to come by visiting our website at savetheboundarywaters.org to learn more.
Soon the dogs would be transporting our loved ones 1.5 miles down White Iron Lake to a point of land blanketed in fragrant red and white pine needles. The folk musicians would strike up, and their joyful notes mingling in the air with the laughter of loved ones and the excited howls of the sled dogs. Spring had struck northern Minnesota well before anyone expected. Plans made far in advance had rapidly changed in the few days before our wedding, and they were quite different from the typical concerns about flowers, seating arrangements, and music. We had to relocate the site of the ceremony due to melting unsafe ice near the mouth of the South Quishwe River. Skis and snowshoes were no longer appropriate for trails, and the lake's surface of glare ice. People would be canoeing on this lake within a week. Everyone arrived at a rocky, sun-glazed point on White Iron Lake, mostly by foot and dog sled, and a brave few by ice skate and ski. We walked down the duff-covered aisle that had been a dog sledding trail just a week before. We exchanged our vows in a cathedral of red pines, surrounded by 100 of our closest friends and family. Straw bales served as pews. No scripture was read, rather the words of Sigurd Olson were shared by our friend, mentor, and boss, Paul Shirky. Dave's first partner in adventure and our dear friend Eric Frosty, had been ordained online to marry us. Sunlight filtered through the pine branches, casting a glow on the faces of those near and dear to us. They were dressed in mucklucks, wool sweaters, and down vests, instead of suits, ties, dresses, and heels. All of these people we loved were here in a place that was beloved and sacred to us. Siblings, uncles, nieces, and nephews, friends from high school and college that were all scattered across the country had converged in this place to see why we loved it and each other so much. That's how we chose to begin the story of the North American Odyssey, which was our journey across the continent by kayak, canoe, and dog sled. Because we jokingly referred to it as our honeymoon, but it really was like a 3-year honeymoon.
We were traveling for basically 27 of 36 months. So we started on Earth Day in Bellingham, Washington, which is just north of Seattle, and we kayaked from there up the coast to Skagway, Alaska. And then we left our kayaks and we hiked over the Chilkoot Pass and paddled down the Yukon River, and then traveled over another mountain range called the Tombstone Mountains to the Peel watershed, and then paddled down the Peel to the mouth of the Mackenzie River on the Arctic Ocean. And then from there, we did like a diagonal by canoe and dog sledded back to Lake Superior. And then we took the winter off and led dog sledding trips. And then the next spring, we started again, and we spent the final year paddling out through the Great Lakes, out the St. Lawrence Seaway, and then down the East Coast to Key West, Florida. So it was about 12,000 miles. We camped in, probably over 600 different spots along the way. And just, so many interesting people and places. And it was life-changing.
This is while we were kayaking in the kind of first leg of the journey up the Inside Passage, so along the British Columbia coast. The bows of our kayaks connected with the soft sand, but what had appeared to be a pristine beach deep in the Canadian coastal wilderness from a distance soon transformed into an eerie scene. This remote cove was filled with colorful man-made detritus. How could this be? We were miles from the nearest road or town. Sifting our fingers through the sand revealed a mixture of pulverized plastic and styrofoam, over which were strewn lighters, tangled fishing nets, weathered Crocs, tampon applicators, soda bottles, and thousands of other pieces of plastic garbage, slowly being degraded by the sun, wind, sand, and water. It took us 5 minutes to clear a garbage-free spot large enough for a 2-person tent. Somehow the water flushing through the Cordero Channel was depositing tons of plastic on this beach, as billions of gallons of water ebbed and flowed with the same steady rhythm that had governed the tides for millennia. How long had this beach been like this? Where did all this garbage come from? Why here? Where this plastic came from was most likely as varied as the waste itself. Some of it likely reached the ocean from the closest communities or boaters passing through, but some could have traveled thousands of miles in the vast Pacific Ocean's wind and currents from as far away as Asia. All we could grasp at the time was that the tides and currents, wind, waves, and storms had turned this quarter-mile-long beach into a repository.
So I'm just going to provide a little context. So this is taking place in a town called Delaney, which is a little community of about 500 people on Great Bear Lake. And Great Bear Lake is a big lake. It's like smaller than Lake Superior, but larger than Lake Erie. And this little town is the only town on this lake. It's a remote Dene community. We stopped by the white metal-sided E&R building to pick up our resupply. A uniformed man with buzz-cut jet black hair greeted us at the door with a smile. Leroy had been expecting us. He invited us in to talk in his office about our upcoming route across Great Bear Lake. In his khaki shirt with a polar bear logo on the sleeve and brown work pants, he was short but strong and slightly older than us. Leroy's smile accentuated a very short trim goatee, never faded. The only prompt Leroy needed was Van placing our maps on his desk. I grew up here, hunting and trapping by dog team in the winter and motorboat in the summer, he began. We tried to envision Leroy out in the small boat on the vast expanse of Great Bear Lake during the brief summer when it was ice-free. He talked about streams we would pass and small crystal clear lakes filled with whitefish that hardly anyone visits anymore. He explained, "You'll be dog sledding through the heart of the caribou wintering area, so I'm pretty sure there will be skidoo tracks from local hunters." Having covered the necessary logistics about our route, the conversation shifted. Sled dogs have been replaced by snow machines, but caribou remain an important source of food for the Dene. Leroy explained that the caribou numbers have been steadily declining, leaving scientists and locals alarmed. Things were changing so fast, and the loss of caribou seemed like another slash in the Dene's cultural fabric. Looking up from the map, Leroy said, "When you travel by dog team, you see every rock, every tree. The land speaks to you. You can hear the land." His eyes took on a glossier sheen as he continued. "Now the young people always have their headphones on and they're staring at screens, TVs, and playing video games. When they go outside, they race around on skidoos or in trucks. They can't hear the land, and so they feel lost. They have lost their purpose. I have been a hunter all my life. Being out on the land, bringing back food, that's my purpose. That's what I know. When I was a kid, if we had a couple fish hooks and a little string, I felt rich. We could spend all day out fishing. We were proud to be bringing home food." He took a sip of tea before saying, "Things have changed so much." When he was talking about hearing the land when you're traveling by dog team, I think for a long time, I didn't really understand why I felt like I just needed to be out paddling or dog sledding or skiing or just out in the wilderness. And I think when I heard him explaining that, it made me realize that, yeah, that's why I find myself, needing to be out there and also needing to try and help facilitate other people getting out in the wilderness by, leading trips and things like that, is because I think that time in nature is so important for all of us.
Quick break in the episode. LB, where are you heading in March?
I'm headed lots of places in March, but specifically the weekend of March 7th through the 9th, I'll be with you actually at Canoecopia.
Canoecopia 2025. Get your tickets now. They're available now. And book your lodging accommodations, plan your trip to Madison for Canoecopia 2025. It's coming up, and we'll see you there.
It's the largest. Are we done? Is that it? That was 30 seconds. Oh, yeah, we'll see you there. Good. That was good. You can just cut the rest of that out.
I think that we all need something. We need to be doing something, right? Besides just traveling from point A to point B, right? We need purpose in our lives. And so, I think sharing wild places and encouraging their protection is on a very basic level. That's what makes Amy and I want to get up in the morning. So finding ways that we can use our skills through the adventures that we undertake, or people we take out into the wilderness, or a book we write, or a presentation that we do, we weave that theme of environmental protection and sort of getting outside and experiencing nature into all those things.
After we finished the North American Odyssey, we returned to northern Minnesota, and we were having kind of a hard time figuring out what was next. Like, the idea of building a cabin on our land, like, it seemed too big and too permanent, and so we actually purchased an old sailboat, and that felt right for us, like living right on Lake Superior, being right on the water, and the fact that you could kind of move it around from place to place, and it's like glamping in that.
I think it resenates for a couple reasons. I think
it's like the view changes.
One is
outside,
just sort of hearing
you don't have to
how
set up a tent. You just
environmental
drop the anchor
impacts
and
like
climate
change are
or whatever.
So
and then
directly
with continuing our work with the
people
wilderness
like
classroom,
Leroy that are living in these remote
as
communities. I mean, not only
we have enough power generated by our solar panels to
it's
be
not,
able to.
It's not like a hurricane
do
or
Zoom
something like that, but
school
it's like
assemblies. So
their
that's
cultural
pretty fun.
food,
Plus,
the
there's
thing
the
that
appeal
is
of like,
most
okay, we're
important to them
on the
is
ocean, so we can show
disappearing in the caribou,
really
right?
neat things about
And
what we're
then
seeing.
the other
in
thing is
various
just,
places, with all the classrooms.
Over time, I've realized that spending time out in the natural world, I feel like wilderness is sort of like a superfood, I mean, it's good to just get out in nature, right? Wherever you are. But if you can get out into a wild place where you really have no outside sounds, no cars, no planes, no horns, no sirens, it really is helpful for us on many levels. And so for me, I love doing that for myself, but I love taking people out into the wilderness and helping them experience it for the first time, because I think it's very important. I think if we're going to protect the earth, we need to have a connection to the earth, and getting out in nature is a way that we develop that connection. But on a selfish personal level, experiencing the Boundary Waters as an example with new people, every time they hear a loon or see a loon for the first time, or they're sitting next to a calm lake staring across it with no outside sounds whatsoever, or staring up at the northern lights for the first time, it reminds me how special it is, and I can sort of see it through their eyes, and I love that. And so I think that's why, one of the reasons why we're drawn to spend about half of the year here in northern Minnesota and half of the year off exploring, because that gives us the chance to sort of challenge ourselves and get the wanderlust out of our system, while also returning to this place that we love and sort of physically helping people experience wilderness.
It's more a lifestyle that we've arrived at after years of doing journeys like this, because we've found ourselves pretty well rooted in this place. We have some land just outside of Ely with a yurt, and we like the idea of having a home base, but also being able to take off for about half the year. So we spend our summers in Ely. Dave's guiding canoe trips. I'm working in the shop at Ely Outfitting Company. And then for the rest of the year, for the winter time, we take off on our sailboat. We've been kind of moving around from place to place, but at the moment it's in Guatemala. It's in a safe spot for the hurricane season, and we're returning to it very soon now. And we'll sail around like Belize, maybe Honduras, stuff like that for the winter. So we've really gravitated towards the sailboat because it's kind of like glamping on the water.
At Cascade Vacation Rentals, we believe that being able to reconnect with nature is important for a healthy life. And we know that life has a tendency to be overwhelming at times, and busy schedules often leave people feeling overwhelmed and disconnected. That's why we're here, to offer you the space and opportunity to reconnect to what's important. We have one of the largest selections of privately owned vacation rental homes and cabins on Minnesota's North Shore of Lake Superior. Choose from luxury homes on the Big Lake to quaint cabins on an inland lake. Find your perfect vacation rental home at staycvr.com. And don't forget to use our exclusive Paddle and Portage promo code PADDLE10 to save 10% on your 2025 Northwoods Getaway at staycvr.com.
For us, or I should say for me, like being on the ocean is just, it's like we can always drop anchor in a very remote, wild place. So sometimes you're kind of stuck, like, okay, it's urban. We're just offshore from like a city or something. But we seek out these places where, you can hear the birds singing in the morning and it just feels right.
Well, really, during the pandemic was the only time we've ever been rooted in one place for a long period of time since we were kids. But other than that, we've always been off traveling. But we found that, like during this 3-year journey, we were gone the vast majority of the time. And it was amazing. But at the same time, I mean, we missed a lot of birthdays and weddings and funerals and just so much, like we really were disconnected in many ways. And so I think we're looking for a little more of a balance. The time here both is a time to spend time out in the wilderness, but at the same time during that I'm earning a living and helping people experience the Boundary Waters for the first time and reconnecting with the community as well, right? So I mean, I think all of those reasons are why I want to sort of this transition, spending half the time here and half the time off exploring really works for us because we can do both. It's like the best of both worlds.
Well, I think throughout all our travels, there have been places we've seen where it's just, a remarkable landscape or something unique that really interests us. And I'm glad that we saw those places, that we passed through. But there's really just a sense of home that I feel in northern Minnesota. It's, it's hard to describe, but I'm sure a lot of you know what I'm talking about, that it just like, you get here, you breathe the air. It's kind of this like your blood pressure lowers and like, yeah, this is it. This does it for me.
So I went to college in Colorado and, it's beautiful out there. It has everything, right? But I just felt like there's something about the people here. I felt like there was always about like, how fast you went or how high you climbed or what ski run you went down or something like that. Everyone's very sort of like, I don't know. Yeah. What you were wearing. And, I just find that here just people are just far more genuine and friendly and just, I love the people in the upper Midwest. And, so we could find wild places everywhere, right? Well, not everywhere, but there are lots of other places we could live and we could still have the sort of natural setting and outdoor activities. But I think northeastern Minnesota has a really unique combination of both sort of people and place that draws us back.
I really liked what both Dave and Amy said in different versions of. There's just something that works here in terms of the lifestyle, living here, not the pretense of the cool American Western outdoor scene and its trends and all that kind of vibe that we know about because we both lived out west ourselves, you in the Bay Area, California, and
Colorado.
Yep, and some time in Colorado, and me in Missoula and Bend and Boise and these places where there's like a great robust outdoor scene and kind of a cool vibe to it. And there's this wildness of the Boundary Waters that we're immersed in, but you don't have to really be cool to be a part of it.
I mean, I would say,
At least for me.
thank God, right? I mean, you don't see cool people. When somebody posts a picture of cool, they don't usually post somebody in a canoe.
Yeah, or like Shug or me or maybe you, but you're cooler than Sugar Eye. I think it's safe to say.
Well, that's quite a compliment. I don't know. It depends on the circle, I'm sure. But you're right, and it's really, this is the place that works. And for all, I mean, how many of you, our listeners, have said to us in person or over email or message that I wish I could do what you're doing and live up there? And I know some of you can't, and I know some of you will find your way, and some of you hold this tether of this podcast and Paddle and Portage as your link, and that's good enough.
We hear that at places like Canoecopia where people say, we listen to you in traffic. We live vicariously through the episodes. It keeps me connected. All these wonderful sentiments that we hear. And I think in wrapping that back to the new book from Dave and Amy, North American Odyssey, and their travels and all the stuff that they saw out there in the wild, all the people they met on that journey that they share in the book, they're still here, and that this place just works.
And I want to thank David and Amy for writing that book, for taking us to those places. Their hearts are so similar to ours in that way, and just wanting to share from these robust experiences. So thanks, Dave and Amy. Thanks, listener. Thanks to each of you that have emailed and shared your story. Keep them coming. And
please send an email to joe@paddleandportage.com or message us on Instagram or whatever platform you want to get a hold of us at. And we would love to share some of your stories on the podcast.
I know it's worth saying. Every time I listen to a lot of podcasts, and whenever they remind me, oh yeah, like the podcast episodes, rate the podcast episodes, make sure you subscribe. That really helps us a lot. So go ahead and do that. And don't forget to head on over to paddleandportage.com and see all the stories that continue to flood that site. Thanks to you, Joe Fredericks.
And our contributors like Ryan Rogers and Aaron Walker and Pam Wright, and sort of that core team that we're kind of building at Paddle and Portage now that we've got a foundation of a solid year underneath us, and we're stepping right into season 2. So thank you again to everybody that's been listening, and onward we march.
Over the ice and snow.
Frozen lakes abound.
Oh, my foot's stuck.
Ice fishing.
Hey, did you put a auger hole here? I can't get my foot out. Ah, there's a lake trout on the end of it.
There's a...
I like to sing, I love to dance. I play the fool if I got the chance. All around the campfire light. All around the campfire light. Got this out of tune old guitar. Not trying to be no star. There's enough of them in a summer's night. Oh, there's enough of them in a summer's night. Well, you can look to Venus, you can look to Mars. I will set my sights by the northern star, and in the deep dark blue come the northern lights. Oh, and in the deep dark blue come the northern lights. I paddle canoe, feeling not thinking if the strokes are true. We're gonna get through to the other side. Out in the night, the waves beat the shore. You can hear them pounding, you can hear them roar. Oh, roll me, rock me in my dreams. You can roll me, rock me in my dreams. So I like to sing, I love to dance. I play the fool if I got the chance. All around the campfire light, all around campfire light, all round, all round, all round the campfire light.